We're going to call the April 15th, 2024 Emmaus Borough Council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to mark that Councilman Hohenscheid is not here. Next up on the agenda, we have personal appeals part 1. If anyone has a personal appeal, now is the time to approach the podium. None. And we have
Jay Bradley.
Yep. None online. Does anybody have a community minute to bring forward? Go ahead, Mr. Anders.
Yes, April 26th at the Emmaus High School in the stadium is Shave for the Brave. As you know, this is an event that is dear to my heart. I will be participating and, come out for the event and learn all about children with cancer and how the Shave for the Brave organization supports the families of the children. Thank you.
I have an announcement. We have Paula, our codes secretary, has passed her BCO test, which is huge. I don't know, Shane, if you want to add to some of that.
Yeah, no. So I'm extremely excited for Miss Weant. So she's always been a great resource in the coast department, and we felt that one of the things that she could definitely use more of is the opportunity to go to training, just so to enhance her confidence in what she's saying to people and she's learned over the years. Obviously, Jim Farnsworth was a great teacher for her, but this is the first time she's actually gone to some formal coach training. And so we thought that sending her to the BCO class would be great. And since she was going to it, why not take the exam? And Paula passed with flying colors. So we're extremely excited about that.
And it stands for Borough Codes what?
Building code official. Now, she's not going to be a codes officer. Yeah, she's not going to be a codes officer, but she is their administrative assistant. If worst ever came to worst, she does have, she could have the authority to sign building permits and things like that in the future. As you know, I went and had to go get that certification a year ago. But Paula did it to really enhance her education, enhance her skills and abilities. And, she learned a lot, and I'm extremely happy and proud of her that she went through and took the exam. So very excited for her.
Awesome. Anyone else have a community minute? Hearing none. Special presentations. I don't believe we have any tonight. Do I have a motion to accept the April 1st council meeting minutes? So moved. Mr. Labenberg, second.
Second.
Ms. Baumgartner, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes. We have no decision on bids. We have a few communications. The St. Anne's Church Fall Fest events request came in. That's going to be for September 5th through the 7th this year. That we're going to turn over to staff. It's a reoccurring event. And the next up is the 5th Street cyclocross event and also the run. That I'm going to recommend goes to Parks and Rec. They're asking for a couple changes, and I think that some of the other stuff is worthwhile as a committee discussion, and we'll see that back here in the future. Borough Engineers Report, we have none. Mr. Solicitor.
I have nothing tonight. I have nothing tonight. Progress.
Thank you. Unfinished business part 1, we have none. Under new business, we have a few ordinances for first reading. We'll start out with ordinance 1261, which is an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 15, subsection 406 and subsection 602.3 of the codified ordinances, amending several sections of the Borough of Emmaus parking regulations. So this one's going to be the one where it's going to affect the parking out front here on Jubilee Street from Jubilee down to, I guess that would be North 4th Street. and Fifth Street over here. We discussed this through public safety. I don't know if you want to speak to this, if anyone has any questions.
In the minutes, it says that you recommended 8 to 4, but on the ordinance, there's 2 different times. And then also the motion made from the committee doesn't state a time in the motion, and it doesn't also say how long the parking is. So I'm just, or it might say the 1 hour parking, and it is removing a disabled parking spot. That is in there. So I don't care. I just want to
Yeah,
make sure it's correct.
let me
That's all.
clarify. First of all, you're deleting the 7 to 5 piece. You're adding 7 to 4. And the reason why I kept it as 7 to 4, and you guys can obviously change it in the first reading, is because our police department starts at 7 over there. So, so people actually start visiting that department at 7 o'clock.
But the other one says 7 to 5.
That's the one that's.
Understood. You're deleting that. It says delete above it.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so
Got it.
the disabled parking piece, first of all, it was mistyped or there was definitely a clerical error because it was actually meant to be over here on the north side of Jubilee, but it said the north side of Fourth. And there's no purpose for that now that we have accessible parking on the rear side of the building.
I think the only reason it was there originally was for the movie theater.
It might have been, but even so, that in itself is dangerous simply based on the idea that there is no handicap accessible ramp anywhere over there. So, or a crosswalk, right?
Yep. Mr. Brown?
The parking on Jubilee says parking time limit is 1 hour. Refresh my memory, is the downtown parking 2 hour limit? So,
It's
w-
15 minutes in some spaces, but 2 hours for most of it.
yeah, what would happen if we would recommend maybe 2 hour parking limit to go coincide with the downtown as well? And plus, if you're doing borough business or also at the police department doing borough business, that is more than an hour. I think the 2 hour is more reasonable.
Yeah, so that was a committee discussion. They can comment on that.
Yes, we had a discussion about currently the time limit's 15 minutes. So we obviously felt, or had a discussion that might pose a problem because there are some general issues that people might come to the borough building or the police building that will take longer than that. According to the chief and Mr. Pepe, they weighed in on what an average time might be, or what the range of time might be for a typical visit for those departments. So based on that information, plus just what seemed like a reasonable time, that's how that 1 hour came to be, as opposed, we did discuss the 2 hour. But because we're keeping the time frame within typical business operation hours for these buildings, that's why we decided to limit it a little bit more so we can turn over spaces. Anything else for committee members to have?
I don't know generally how many people that work here park in the back parking lot, if there's any spaces. And the reason I'm asking is if you do have a meeting where you know it's going to go longer than an hour, you could ask them to park there. But I don't know if there's parking available, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's shaking out that there's probably 2 to 3 spots back there during the
So that
day.
could happen
Yeah.
if you had to do
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And again, if council members are coming for a several-hour meeting, that's the first spot I would check is back in that lot if I was you. That way you're not getting parking tickets, right, Mr. Bowie?
Yes, yes. Is anyone else agreeing with Mr. Brown on maybe bumping this to 2 hours? Is everyone thinking 1 hour? Or do we want to have any further discussion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1261.
As it is?
As is.
All right, motion by Mr. Labenberg. Is there a second? Ms. Baumgartner, any further discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so this was prompted by the need for some sort of, or the recommendation for some sort of limit for one side of the street because there was nothing, and so anybody could park there at any time. And so what we came up with was based on typical duration of visits, the minimum maximum range, and then trying to find something that was consistent across both sides of the street, just for simplicity's sake. So this is the first reading. It's not a continuation of our other ones since there have been changes. So if there are suggestions, we can certainly incorporate them at this time.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Roll call. Oh, sorry, roll call vote. I even have it in my notes. Roll call vote. Ms. Watt,
Aye.
Mr. Anders,
Aye.
Mr. Labenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Baumgartner,
Aye.
Mr. Valiant, aye. 6 ayes. Our next reading on this will be on the May 6th agenda. Next up is ordinance 1263, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending chapter 15 subsection 405.1.1 and subsection 405.1.2.a of the Emmaus Borough Code to amend the definition of a commercial motor vehicle. This is our first reading, and this also went through public safety. So Ms. Baumgartner, if you would like to.
Yeah, this is when I stepped out, so I don't know the discussion that happened.
See,
Because
this is
I
what
had a-
happens when you have to go.
I had a prior, I had a prior work commitment,
Yeah.
but it was in the last 20 minutes of that meeting. So if you or Ms. Watt want to speak to it, you're
Yeah.
probably better positioned.
You want me to?
do so.
Sure.
You want me to? So back in, I think it was 2013, Borough Council addressed a major issue in the community. And at that point, it was really focused around tractor trailers parking up our streets. Ridge Street was specifically the object of our affection at that point. But we also looked at other commercial motor vehicles, motorhomes, trailers. I mean, when you really started taking a look at it, there were some major safety concerns. And so we addressed parking for all of those types of vehicles in that ordinance. And Chief Apgar and Deputy Chief Hampshire have brought up the concern that when we adopted that ordinance, we went under the federal code of what the definition of a commercial vehicle was, which was anything over 24,001 pounds. Their issue is vehicles that are rated between 16,001 and 24,000 pounds. There are a lot of commercial vehicles that are large box trucks, bread trucks, landscaping vehicles, dump trucks that are rated under 24,001 pounds that are starting to create an issue for them. And they said it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue where commercial companies are allowing their landscaping employees to take the vehicle home, parking it on the streets. And now we're getting complaints that people have to go out around blindly around these vehicles parked on the sides of the streets. And so they asked us to change the definition within that ordinance to amend commercial motor vehicle to reflect the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania code of a commercial motor vehicle. And the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania code says it is anything over 16,001 pounds. So this ordinance essentially changes the definition and the one section within the code that mentions the 24,001. We reduce it down to 16,001 or 17, not 16. I'm sorry, 17,001, not 16. Yeah, it's 17,000. So that is what they're asking to do.
Mr. Lambert?
I guess my only question is, my only question is 17,000. I don't know what that is. So does any, let me give you an example. How about just a regular old van?
That's a
That's
residential
fine.
vehicle.
Okay, what about like a pickup truck that has the box, not the box, but like you know how they put the cab on it
Like a work
and
chassis?
use that as like
So
a
like I
plumber
have an
has that.
like I have an F350, right?
And
You
then
know,
you have
with
the
with
cab
dual
on the
cab.
back, but not a
Yeah.
box, not the box, but
That's not that's not a, that's.
I'm
and
just
there's
trying to
exemption-
understand because I don't want it to be too
Yeah,
restrictive.
No,
that-
so there's exemptions within our ordinance itself and within the Pennsylvania code of what the definition of commercial versus residential is. It's pretty well defined.
Okay,
And
These are really meant for the box truck, the landscaping vehicle, the small dump trucks.
and I just recall my memory here, trailers that you pull with your car, like to go up to the compost center. I thought we had a law already where you couldn't, or was that only if it was not attached that we had a law?
Yeah, so we have a restriction on how long they're allowed to be out on the public street. So if,
And I do know they're not
Yeah.
allowed to be not attached in parking.
right,
lots.
you're not allowed to park them out there.
Okay, or boats
days.
or.
Right.
So boats will no longer be able to stay on the road, which they shouldn't be.
But
anyhow, I
no,
don't
so,
think.
so again, nothing changes in those terms.
Okay.
Nothing changes except the definition of a commercial vehicle gets.
So we
reduced.
already had this, we're just fine tuning
That's
it?
correct. All
Thank-
you're doing is changing that weight.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
has it been enforced?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll tell you that when we adopted that ordinance, I mean, it's been 11 years now. That large commercial parking problem that we had really doesn't exist. I think, I don't see tractor trailers parked overnight on the side of our streets anymore. So they're trying now to address those other commercial vehicles under the state code that would be under the state code. They're trying to address those because they're creating a problem in town.
And bear in mind, Mr. Ladenburg, it does clearly, these are commercial vehicles only. So it says vehicles engaged in intrastate or interstate commerce. So a residential vehicle, they're welcome to try to argue that if they got a citation for it, but this is primarily focused upon
Okay.
commercial vehicles.
And then, I forgot what I was gonna say, you sidetracked me.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr.
I know what exists. If, since the new ordinance and if there's more vehicles that are going to fall into it because of the rate reduction, will we be giving warnings the first time?
I would imagine, Mayor. Yeah, I would imagine.
I think so.
Okay, I would think for maybe a year and then after that, whatever.
But
That's all, thank you.
Mr. Labenberg, I would add that Chief Price thought it was a safety issue as well about the ability to get a
Because-
fire truck down the
No,
street.
I understand that part, yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Mr. Brown?
Two questions. Under at the amend part definitions, it has vehicle more than 8 passengers, including the driver for compensation. Are we talking about vehicles then? I'm concerned about this ordinance because I think it makes it more restrictive to others. I
So-
understand, but my two questions are, or 2 points is 8 passengers, including the driver for compensation, and then 15 passenger vans.
So I will tell you that if you look at the current ordinance, it's actually word for word.
Is that right?
Yeah, so this is literally a copy paste from the state code. This is, we didn't make this one up in our
Okay.
head, but if you look at the old ordinance, it actually 1 through 5 there
Is what we voted on in the beginning.
actually are word for word the same. So the federal and the state match in terms of those five bullet points. The only thing that doesn't match is the 17,001 versus the 24,001.
And again, if you're worried about catching somebody bringing their van home or there's something that they would regularly use, notice that subsection 2 clearly states, including the driver for compensation. So if somebody has an 8-person van that is residential, that wouldn't qualify.
I understand.
I think
So,
what
how
would
do
clear
you-
it up for you
How
is
about
if
the Uber/Lyft driver and airport shuttle that
Sure.
is unmarked.
so again, most of those are residential vehicles, right? Where I get to turn my light off whenever I want to. They're not looking to get everybody that's doing that. They're looking for this thing is an oversized type of vehicle that's creating a safety problem in the street. So you're think of a dump truck that's halfway out into the lane is really what they're trying to address here.
I think I need to do a field trip. See exactly what
Alright.
they're seeing.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1 through 5 is no different, other than the weight.
Mr. Lidenberg?
I'll make a motion to approve 1263, ordinance 1263.
There's a motion. Do I have a second?
second.
Ms. Baumgartner, is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Ms. Watt,
Aye.
Mr. Anders,
Aye.
Mr. Labenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Baumgartner,
Aye.
Mr. Valiant, aye. Our next reading for this will also be at the next council meeting on May 6th. Next up on the agenda is ordinance 1264, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 15, subsection 1214 of the Emmaus Borough Code, establishing a stop sign at multiple intersections within the Borough of Emmaus. This is the first reading, and this is part of our multiple step process of installing stop signs throughout town where they're missing.
With one addition that I added into this that you should be aware of, and that is when council approved the reconstruction plan of South Second Street, because we're narrowing down the underpass to one lane. When we approved that, we also approved putting 2 stop signs in. Since that project is going to be completed in June, no time better than now to adopt that stop sign piece. So your second, be it further ordained and enacted, includes that South Second Street stop sign north and south of the railroad tracks. So everything else was part of that bigger plan that the Public Safety Committee had talked about phasing in over a number of years. But I just want to let you know that we did add that as part of this, because you're going to add that in anyway. So that is added to this list.
Any other further discussion? We have a motion to approve ordinance 1264.
So moved.
Ms. Baumgartner, a second.
Second.
Ms. Watt, any further discussion?
You, s-
Roll.
is this the first, you said first batch? Because I,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that plan with like 3 phases or something like that, Public Safety did.
Yes.
Ms. Baumgartner wasn't part of that committee, but I think it was like a 3-phase plan that was
but
submitted.
it's also past council members, so I didn't
I-
know what direction
yeah.
this council's
No,
going.
I understand.
So this is based on research that the chief did. I sat down with him when I was chairing public safety just to talk about his goals and what he's been working on. So he shared with me the full plan, where they identified uncontrolled traffic intersections, and
300.
I mean, it was pretty, I don't even know how many, but there's quite a lot.
Right, and it's been
And
like that
so-
forever.
Right, and so they identified the most essential or the key ones to start with, and
And I
this is
thought that's
based
the
on-
direction we were going. We were gonna adjust the main ones, and then I thought we were backing off, but that's up for debate, I guess.
Right
Well, it's
now,
also budgetary, right? So these stop signs are
This
based
year.
on the budget that you approved for it.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I do know that there was, like, we were addressing the main ones first, so.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see
and
where it goes.
I'll also say that we asked the Public Works Director to review and just make sure that it was even feasible to place the signs where they were identified in need of placement. So he said there were no issues or objections there either. So.
Any more comment? Ms. Watt,
Aye.
Mr. Anders,
Aye.
Mr. Labenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Baumgartner?
Aye.
Mr. Valiant? Aye. Ayes. All right, moving along. Unfinished business part 2, we have none. Does anyone have a item not on the agenda they would like to bring up? Hearing none. Madam Mayor's report.
Thank you. On your iPads this evening is Proclamation 2024-587 in recognition of Arbor Day, which is April 26th this year. And I encourage all residents to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Progress.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Committee reports. Public Works, Mr. Anders.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I do have one item for official action this evening, and that is Resolution 2024-12, a resolution approving the sale of a Pace trailer to Coopersburg Borough for the price of $1.
This is exactly what we bought it for
Thank you.
20 years ago.
That's what I was just gonna say.
$2 for the inflation.
Yeah, right. What they need to put into it,
There's a motion by Mr. Anders. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Labenberg, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes.
We did meet on April 8th via Zoom, and one of the items that have recently come to our attention is one of our new hires unfortunately did not accept the position, so we will have one position for Public Works opening soon to rehire. During our meeting, we also discussed our water and streets items, as you'll see in your iPads. One other thing, and maybe this is for one of the health and sanitation. I do believe Earth Day is coming up, and we did miss that in the notes. But isn't that this upcoming weekend, Mr. Brown?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I
And
think that's probably Arbor Day weekend, probably
I
27th.
thought it was the 21st. 22nd is Earth Day.
thank you.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
with that, I'll report progress.
Thank you, Mr. Anders. One question on that. Do you feel out of your last group of interviews, is there anyone else?
I will deal with that.
Health, sanitation, and codes, Mr. Brown.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman. Next meeting is tomorrow, April 16th at 4:45 here at the, I call it community room. Conference room. Thank you.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation is Mr. Hunshide, and with his absence, Mr. Anders will give the report.
Thank you once again, Mr. Balliet. We do not have anything on the agenda this evening. Our next meeting is Thursday, April 18th at 4:45, which will be a Zoom meeting and probably should be a short meeting, but we have that with everyone in attendance. Thank you. Progress.
Thank you. Next up is Public Safety, Ms. Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've taken care of the ordinances, so thank you for doing that heavy lifting earlier in the agenda. We do have a few other items for action. The first of which is something we're all excited about, I would say, which is to hire a full-time paramedic. We had our final interview recently, and he was a great candidate. We're, I think, grateful to have found him and looking forward to having him on board. So I'd like to put this in the form of a motion. I make a motion to hire Andrew Lopez as a full-time paramedic contingent upon passing background checks. And just to clarify, the start date will be determined. He's actually relocating here, so we know about when he'll probably start, but that's not official yet.
Sometime after May 1st.
In the spring.
Motion by Ms. Baumgartner. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Watt. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Our crossing guard agreement, as you know, we have been working with EPSD to work out the particulars regarding the crossing guards. The revised crossing guard agreement is attached. This has gone through several revisions and discussions. So we felt satisfied as a committee and put forth this agreement for your review. I put it in the form of a motion to approve the crossing guard agreement with EPSD.
Second.
We got a motion by Ms. Baumgartner and a second by Mr. Labenberg. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, thank you for working on this. The one issue I have on the second page, top paragraph, the donation shall increase up to 5%. With it saying shall up to 5%, it's kind of contradicting, is it not? Because you got up to,
Could be 0. Correct.
but it could be 3, but it's saying shall, like, shouldn't it be should?
No,
No, it should not be.
no. It's an agreement. It's not a suggestion. It's a good try, but even the non-attorneys would catch that one.
I have a feeling that was placed there for a very specific reason.
Yes.
Mr.
Although it is a great idea, but I'm pretty sure we won't be able to sneak that through.
So I'm assuming, and I don't know because there's no minutes on it, but I'm assuming 0 to 5% is to increase if somebody's working multiple years, they get step raises like a quarter or whatever. I'm
Well,
guessing.
so I would guess, but it's based on their overall cost increase.
Okay.
So it could be the fact that their liability insurance is increased. It could
Okay.
be, it could be a number of
That
things.
makes sense.
It could be a number of things.
The other costs, other than the wages.
Sure. And we don't want to know what that would be used for.
Okay.
We don't want to have any potential interaction or direction of what their employees are doing.
No, I'm fine with that. And just, I don't need to know it for this, but does anyone know what we're looking to pay these crossing guards so we can spread the word? I see the signs, but it probably helps if they know how much they get paid.
But isn't that through the school district?
Yeah, but I don't know if it
the
came up
school
in
district-
discussion.
the
I'm
school
just
district
asking.
Had a wage that they've been advertising.
I mean, are we talking $12, $15?
I would think it'd be possible we could get that information from the school district,
Let me know, because.
but
Yeah.
as they're not our employees, we would not have that information readily available.
I think I saw a yard sign at 1650.
Okay, that's all. Just curious.
Mr. Anderson?
My only question was with the up to 5%, is that something that we would still vote on at budget time of what we will approve, or is that fixated?
You still
because
have a
of-
way to get out of everything here, right?
Just making sure.
So
that's why
yeah,
I'm asking.
you have to vote.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes.
I feel like that requires an applause, like that one,
Finally.
that one took a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Shane knocked it out in an hour.
I did, that's no joke. Well, it took 4 months. We got done in an hour.
All right, another item for action. If you recall, last meeting, we discussed the ambulance subscription and updating the fees, and there was an approval of fees at council level. We just wanted to clarify how to define a household. And so in our last meeting, we had some discussion about that. And we decided that it would be, household would be defined as, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have my notes with me, but household was defined as 2 adults and any dependents under the age of 26 residing at the same residence. Is that accurate? Okay. Just making sure I captured it. So that's what we determined based on Ms. Watt's research about surrounding terms and terminology and how it's used for other subscription programs and just discussion in our committee. So I'll put that in the form of a motion to approve that as our definition of household for ambulance subscription, just for clarifying purposes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Watt. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes.
I think that kind of clears the way now.
Yes.
We move forward, right? There was nothing else we needed to clean up.
Nope, so now we have the fees and we have the definition.
Right,
That
okay.
was a little ambiguous, so, yep. The final item is not for action, it's for information or potentially, I suppose, could be for action, but this is for information. As you know, we have a schedule for replacement of various vehicles in our emergency departments. Because of our sort of the lead time issues that have been happening really ever since the pandemic, and the impact to cost, there have been some factors that are altering our plan. The rescue truck is something that would have already been purchased, right? And that was delayed. And then we also have some lead time concerns and some pricing differences than what is typical. So in order to make a decision, we asked that we have Mr. Pepe as well as our chiefs present and discuss what this involves and what kind of proposal they have for us. So I don't know if Mr. Pepe, if you want to start, or if we should have our chiefs come up, or Chief Miller.
So it's designed for the chiefs to start.
Okay.
However,
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
We have about, I have about half a dozen screens on the computer here I'm trying to figure. All right. So the first part of this, Deputy Chief Miller is going to present the need for the truck, some of the technical things. I will go through the finances with you. The only thing that I ask is you're going to have questions. This is meant to generate discussion with you. Please hold those questions and that discussion until the end, because I think you're going to have some questions that may be answered somewhere inside the presentation. And if they're not, then ask, after we kind of get through it. But let us kind of get through it, and then we'll go from there. And as I had asked Chief Miller earlier, it may generate some discussion or questions that he's not necessarily prepared to answer tonight. And I've asked him that if that's the case, just to let you know, we're not prepared to have that part of a discussion tonight. And if we have to go back to committee and prepare for more discussion, then that's what we would do. But I don't want him to try to answer questions that he's not necessarily prepared to answer this evening. That doesn't mean that he can't answer questions, but if there's something that's more detailed that involves a little bit more research or discussion, that we would just go back to committee and have more of those talking points. So if there's anything at all that we think is kind of beyond the scope of what we're trying to accomplish tonight, I would just ask that we take that to committee and talk about it. That doesn't mean don't ask your question tonight, because any questions that you have, I would prefer we kind of get out there so that way we know what other talking points might need to be made for any further information you're seeking. Okay. So, Chief Miller.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you guys today. Obviously, we're proposing the replacement of our rescue engine.
Yeah. You're gonna need to pull that thing up to your face.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're proposing to replace our current rescue engine that we have. The vehicle's 22 years old. It is part of our existing replacement models and whatnot. During budget season, I explained all of the reasons why, in addition to age, the vehicle needs to be replaced. When the vehicle was originally spec'd in 2002, the mission and needs of the department were different. Some factors that further cemented is the vehicle was, when Chief Price first started, significantly overweight, underpowered, and lacked the true needs of the department. The pump that is on the vehicle now barely passed pump testing every year since I've been here. When I spoke about the overweight and underpowered, I want to stress that the underpowered does not mean that the truck's designed to go fast. Obviously, you have to have some factor in there for safety, for being able to get out of its way, and also the engine's braking is directly related to the size of the motor. We've had significant work done on it to improve that ability, and it's just not meeting fruition. With the replacement of this truck, I also envision, and the department's leadership is kind of getting the same vision of the vehicle needs to be better designed for an all hazards approach. So the engine we received in 2020 was designed to be primarily a fire response apparatus. So there's not a lot of room for storage in the cab for EMS supplies as our EMS responses increase and whatnot. And this new rescue truck was designed with that in mind, with additional space in the cab for expanding EMS abilities. The other intent of the truck is obviously in the first year alone, we would test a plan to use that as the primary fire apparatus. Presently, if the fire engine is on a call at Community Park and there is a vehicle rescue on the turnpike, they would have to respond back to the station, get the rescue engine, and then drive back down to get on the turnpike. What we would like to see going forward is that all of the primary equipment that the on-duty crew needs to handle everything is in one spot, and this design allows for that. The cost has significantly increased since we first discussed this in 2022, where Chief Price estimated that the cost would be about $850,000. Today, we are at 1.349, and that's after a price increase already this year and anticipated price increases coming through the year. I can speak personally to fire apparatus. In 2007, in my former department, we purchased an engine for $300,000, and we got two for $600,000. The average engine now is about $800,000. We've seen a dramatic increase since 2019, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. In 2017, prior to my arrival, Chief Price was tasked with coming up with a memo of apparatus replacement schedule. you obviously all have seen this in your packet. The prices passed today for the rescue truck, those are best guesses. To say that's an accurate number, I can't give you that. Because if you told me in 2018 that we'd be looking at a $1.4 million truck, I would have said that that's absolutely absurd, but here we are today. Obviously, he has a staggered approach to replace the rescue engine, which that's why we're here today. And then in 2028, do the 1998 Spartan fire truck. It was also known as 711 prior to the county changing the terminology. And then our squad vehicle in 2033 and the ladder truck, which was on that long loan in 2036. And then obviously some support vehicles there, the fire police vehicle, the bread truck that we have now, that's from 1988. That is definitely circling the drain, although it is a fun apparatus, and I do enjoy that it is here now, but it's outgrown its needs. And then the Chiefs vehicle for the 2017 Tahoe in 2031. And then obviously our utility pickup in 2037. And again, those cost estimates are fluid. I don't want to give you an answer now on that. And then in 2037, you're asking me to hold up why we said what we said today. The schedule's dynamic. Obviously, we don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't know what could happen in the world with the current state of geopolitical affairs. But our vehicle lead times used to be 8 to 12 months, and that was pretty conservative. I know departments that were getting them in 5-6 months. That the days of that are long gone. For the most manufacturers, it's 3 years, and depending on the brand, the vendor, you could see 5 to 6 years. Pierce, who also submitted for this apparatus, was at $1.6 million and a 5 to 6 year build time. And that has, as I understand, grown. Going forward, I have a bit of a different plan I think, with regarding apparatus that might include downsizing. That's something that I would present separately to here, because that would be a lengthy presentation of my intentions and goals going forward.
I'm going to get into the less fun part of this. So we're going to spend the majority of the rest of the time talking about the finances because I think it's easy to prove that there's a need for the rescue truck, and Chief Miller will be able to talk to that in more detail if you'd like him to. I was tasked by the Public Safety Committee to look at the financial analysis of, okay, $1.3 million for a rescue truck. What does that mean? What does that look like? What would that look like? How would we pay for it? Right? Because that's what I do. So let's talk about kind of where we are if you were going to purchase this vehicle. First of all, total cost, $1.323 million. Now, they have given me an updated number, but we had already run the finances by that point. And to be honest with you,
$20,000.
yeah, but it's not going to be, it's not, in the scheme of this, it's not going to make a difference.
20,000 less?
No, not quite. Wishful thinking. So currently we have 162,518 in the apparatus savings fund. Remember, we drained that out when we purchased the last vehicle. That's what the whole fund is all about. This year, you budgeted $100,000 to go into that fund, and assuming that it's going to be a 3-year lead time from today, if you were to purchase it today, the $100,000 from this year, another 2 years of $100,000 year savings, we would add that in. The reality would be we would need to finance around $873,000 to $890,000 somewhere in there. So let's call it 873 for the discussion today. All right. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, rates aren't 2% anymore. I use Tax Exempt Leasing Corporation. They're usually competitive. They don't always win the bid, but they've won some of our bids, but they're always first or second when it comes to vehicle leasing rates. So this number is a good number to use as a budgetary number right now. It's not a great number, right? 5.69% is what they quoted me on both a 5 and 7 year vehicle lease. We don't know, and this is important to understand. I don't know what the rates are going to look like in 3 years. If I did, I'd I'd definitely not be working in my world. I'd be on Wall Street somewhere. But so we have to use our assumptions have to use what today's rates are. Okay. They keep saying interest rates are going to go down, but then they don't go down. So we're going to use 5.69%. We have to make the assumption that in 3 years, that's what the interest rate's going to be. It could be 8.9%. It could be 3.9%. I don't know. If you took out a 5-year lease at 5.69%, if we were financing the 863,000 or whatever that last slide showed, you would be paying 205,516 a year. Your total payout over a 5-year lease would be a little over $1 million. Okay. If you were to take out a 7-year lease, it's a smaller yearly payment, but a higher total payout, right? So it's a $55,000 difference or something to that effect. So you'd pay less per year, more overall. Now, why is that significant to understand that? Because currently, within the fire budget, you only pay $33,000, a little, and change in total yearly vehicle payments. The first one is that 2021 fire pumper. We took out a 3-year loan on that. And we're only paying $21,000 a year. That is satisfied this year, so that payment comes off. And your forever loan for the ladder truck of $11,000 a year for 20 years comes off in 2026. So theoretically, by the time that you're actually paying the loan for the new vehicle, those two payments will come off. Now, why is that significant? Well, because the potential payments for a 5-year and 7-year loan are right below that, right? And it's not close to $33,000 a year. It's a lot more. So before deciding, some things that we need to consider is what's our true need in the department as far as apparatus. A new rescue truck is a need. I think it's a very clear need. But what's our need of overall fleet? And the reason I say that is because I think our true need of overall fleet and the replacement plan could determine how long you take a loan out for. Okay. You need to look at financing options, right? No matter what, if you take out a 5 or 7-year loan, it looks like there is absolutely no way to avoid a tax increase in the fire tax if you finance this truck. We know today's interest rates, right? But we don't know what next year's interest rates are, let alone 3 years from now. So you need to take that into consideration as well. Could be better, could be worse. You need to really kind of understand, I think, what the future apparatus replacement plan is. I can only assume that it looks like what we looked at back in 2017. Chief Price submitted his memo. Is there a different approach? I think you need to understand that approach, what that approach might be. Is there a different approach? If so, does that really have any impact on this purchase particularly? I don't think it does. Okay. I want to be clear that no matter what the future apparatus replacement plan might look like, the reality is that the rescue truck is next and the rescue truck is now in terms of what the department is asking for. Financing approach, if you decide to go through it, to purchase the vehicle. I gave you a memorandum. I'm essentially going to go through that memorandum with a little bit more detail. Option 1 is pay the 5-year loan, right? So this option allows you to pay the apparatus off quicker, which allows you to continue to work towards the apparatus replacement plan. However, the payment's going to be $205,000 a year. So the benefits of doing that, obviously, is you're able to continue the process of obtaining new equipment without longer delays. Less financing also means less overall interest. There's about a $55,000 savings in overall interest in the 2 years. The drawbacks obviously are, first of all, what does the fire tax and the fire budget look like, right? Currently, you only budget to carry over about $100,000 a year in unreserved balance. That could be a couple major incidents eat up overtime cost or investigation cost, or it could be, $100,000 isn't a ton of money when it comes to a budget in a department where You know, if you have to replace an engine in the ladder truck, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, not a few thousand that it's like replacing the vehicle in your car. So $100,000 in the scheme of things is not a ton of money. So no matter how you swing it, we don't have unreserved balance sitting there to be paying on a $200,000 per year loan. So if you were to say, all right, we're going to do the 5 years to generate that $200,000, it looks like it's 8.25 mil tax increase. That's what it looks like. That ends up being, and in your memorandum, you see the chart, how we calculate it. That ends up being about $50 per year per household.
That's without wage increases.
This is strictly, everything that I'm talking about is strictly based on the cost of apparatus alone. It has nothing to do with the fact that there's a union contract coming up in the next 2 years that you'd have to deal with or anything else. This is strictly based on apparatus alone without any other factors. You could earmark the $100,000 per year for the apparatus savings that you do right now. You could take that 100,000 and eliminate it, putting that money directly into financing. However, you still have a $100,000 gap, right? Now you'd have a 0.125 mil increase, meaning it would be $25 per household instead of $50 per household. However, that also means if you do that, you're sacrificing saving towards the next truck, meaning you'll start from zero for the next truck. So you're going to be in probably an even worse position to finance the next vehicle. Financing option number 2, pay for the 7-year loan. That allows you to pay less per year. It gets you closer to not having an increase in property taxes solely for this purpose. The payment's $154,676 per year. The benefits for that would be the yearly payment is less. You might avoid a tax increase or as much of a tax increase only if you use the $100,000 per year that we currently use to save towards the next apparatus, right? The drawbacks is you're going to pay the extra $55,000 in additional overall interest in that extra 2-year period. It does have an effect on the apparatus replacement schedule as well in terms of financing, because you certainly won't be able to afford to be paying on one and buying the next one at the same time. Those 2 payments will not be able to overlap. There's absolutely no way you'd be able to pay for that. You could, again, go back to that $100,000, right? So if you said, hey, we're gonna rob the $100,000 from the savings account for future apparatus, and we're going to use that to pay towards financing. And then when the $33,124 comes off from the financing costs that we currently have, right? So now you're at $133,000 of being able to pay towards that 154. You're definitely closer to not having to raise taxes solely for this purpose. However, you'll still need to come up with $21,552 in new money. Understand that if we're carrying over consistently $100,000 and that's shrinking, right? That shrinks because expenses go up in operations. Just that $21,000 is over 20% of your current budget to carry over from year to year. So that's a big, that even $20,000 in the fire budget is a big chunk. So you just have to, you would just have to keep that in mind. So the reality check. So we could try to do what we did with the ladder truck, go after a 2% Penvest loan, but to be honest with you, we're drying that well up because we're going to use Penvest to go after the PFAS grant and the PFAS loan, and we're going to go after Penvest for the sewer grant and loan. To be honest with you, I don't think Penvest is going to be interested in us coming back for an apparatus loan, especially a 20-year apparatus loan when the replacement plan is 5 to 7 years from now. We're looking at the next apparatus. Interest rates are obviously a major factor, though, because we know that Penvest is going to be somewhere in a 2 range, probably 2.5, 2.6. But they've stayed under 3. Penvest has stayed under 3%. But again, I think the chances of Penvest entertaining yet another loan from us is probably going to be a challenge. I really do. I don't think they're going to be very interested in us doing that. We have bigger fish to fry with Penvest, with a $4 million loan / grant and a $10 million loan / grant coming. So I would concentrate my efforts there with those two things. I'd strongly advise against using the apparatus savings number to pay towards financing, simply because the next apparatus is going to start with 0 in the bank. So I would be careful of doing that, because you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul, right? And then you're going to have to pay Paul more. Is what's really happening with these plans. We need to have a replacement plan in place. We know that we're overdue to replace several pieces of apparatus, but the chief's current plan, is that what the plan should be, or is there possibly a different approach? That's something that, again, needs to be a discussion. However, I don't think any of those plans have a bearing on whether or not you're actually going to purchase this particular piece of apparatus. Okay. I do have a recommendation. So my recommendation is based purely on the facts that I know. Okay. It is not an ideal recommendation. Please understand that. I would not use the $100,000 per year. Let me finish this one. I think you'll get to. I would not use $100,000 per year. Rather, I'd possibly recommend you take the following approach, which unfortunately is still going to result in a tax increase here. What I would consider as a possible approach is, if you look at the purchase price of 1.329 million, the current apparatus savings of 162,000. You have the budgeted savings for 2024, and you have the extra 2 years before this thing actually shows up. If you were to increase the fire tax in 2025, right? And even though it's 2 years before you actually take delivery of the vehicle, you're saving that money now and gaining interest on that money, rather than paying 5.69% interest on that money. So in that 3 years, you would only be financing $466,000 rather than $873,000 when you actually take the delivery. The other thing that we haven't talked about yet is, what can we sell the current truck for? It might be worth $100,000. I don't know that answer. The Chiefs might.
I can tell you, it's going to be entirely dependent on the market at the time. I can't speculate on that now, because right now, used apparatus purchase numbers are pretty high right now, because if you have a fire truck that gets in an accident or catches fire, you can't wait 3 to 5 years to get it. So you're going to pay what you need to pay on the used market. So the numbers are good now. I don't want to speculate on that in a couple of years.
So we might get $100,000 out of this truck. We might get more. We might get less. I really don't know, right? So being that it's a rescue truck, I would think that there's probably some demand for it. And when you're looking at $1.3 million for a new one, yes, ours is older at this point. What year was?
2002.
So, so it's over 20 years old, but I still think that there's going to be a demand for that truck. So again, if you sell it for 100,000, you subtract that off the top, right? You could pay this truck off in 3 years rather than 5 or 7. And you could continue to save for future apparatus. There can be other approaches, right? That's obviously just one approach. We can alter that approach. We can decrease a tax increase. You could say, hey, you know what? Let's order this thing and not worry about it for 3 years because I'm coming off of council. Just kidding. But you could ignore it altogether. You don't have to purchase this thing. Obviously, we're recommending that you do. But we can look at financing options a multitude of different ways, right? So I think there's other hybrid approaches that you could take as well. I don't think at this point you can make a purchase vote tonight. I don't think that you're going to be able to do that. But I think we need to have a real discussion tonight, because these numbers are real, right? And there's no getting around those numbers. I know this. The Chiefs asked for it 2 months ago, and that price went up 4% in those 2 months. I think it was
closer to 6%, actually.
6%. So we do know that. I think they were talking sometime in June, maybe.
That's correct.
So we would want to have these discussions in the very near future and make a decision in the very near future. Again, it doesn't have to be tonight, but I think what we're looking for is for you to have the discussion and ask the questions. Again, I can only talk numbers. I don't know a whole lot about the specifications and that operation. That's what the professional is for. But I would say let's open it up for you to talk about. And do you need to see any of these slides, or should I stop sharing the screen?
Mr. Lindberg?
You explained it perfectly. You answered all my questions. I was gonna ask about what's on the fire truck, so you got that on the next screen, right when I thought of it.
Good.
I'm always one for paying things off faster because why give money to the bank? But that only works if you're able to do it. And I think with this plan, with the tax increase earlier rather than later, I think that's a smart way to go. And I don't know about paying it off in 3 years, but 5 years, you're not cutting yourself short and you're giving yourself some leeway because you're not, got to factor in, there's going to be increases with wages and other costs. So there's going to be an increase there. And I would support that plan. Now, the next truck, the next vehicle, I don't know. I need more information on that, but we're just dealing with this at this point.
Mr. Anders?
Thank you, Chief Miller. Quick question. How much approximately thousands of dollars are we spending on this 20-year-old truck currently to keep it serviceable?
I don't have that number in front of me. I can get that to you, but I mean, like I said, it's barely passing its pump testing, which eventually could affect our ISO rating as
So
well.
would you say 10, 15,000 at least a year?
I'd say 10,000 is a conservative number.
So that's, in effect, at some point, that money could go towards paying, for our loan or interest or whatever. It's at least something that would come off.
Yeah, until so we can't factor that because
I understand that.
the problem is that it's going to be the next vehicle that's broken, right? That's
Well, you would hope.
that's I would see that the maintenance budget for that vehicle would go down, but your other 20-year-old vehicles are now 25, 26 and climbing. So I would venture to guess that yes, in theory, it could transfer that way, but in reality, we're probably paying more in other maintenance costs.
And one other thing for you, Shane, is, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a truck that we're still paying for that was coming off in 2026. That was the 20-year loan, something like that.
Yeah, that was
Correct?
Yeah, that was on the screen. That's you pay 11,583 a year on it.
So I guess my point is I don't want us to ever make that mistake again because we're paying for that and have been paying for that in the future because we did not do shorter term financing. And I'm not saying what the number is, but I think, some of the slides show that between that 5 and 7 years is a sweet spot. The other thing is if interest rates go down, we could always refinance it if we had to at some point. So thank you.
Mr. Brown?
I have multiple questions. I like your thought on hybrid approach. Just quickly glancing at the debt service that we have, there's a couple things that look like they mature in 26 or 27, things of that nature. Could that be calculated into our payment plan?
Yeah, so one of the things that you have the opportunity, so I looked at it purely from what do you pay out of the fire tax, okay? One of the things that you can do is any of the other funds you can pay towards or pay for out of your general fund. So if you have, you have a lot of financing going on right now for a multitude of things, you could essentially pay towards something that is in one of the other funds out of general fund. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. What you're not allowed to do is take money from the fire tax and pay for a new water pump, right? You're not allowed to do that. Or you're not allowed to take money out of the water fund and get yourself in trouble like some other cities do and pay for other funds. But general fund, you can help finance other things. What I would just simply warn you of is there's always going to be that need in those other departments, right? That's the unknown. Like, okay, so we'll pay for fire apparatus out of the general fund. The next thing you know, we're raising the general fund tax because now we need another dump truck or we need whatever it might be.
Well, Lawrence isn't here, so
Yeah. Well, that's our role, right?
Right, that's right. Right. Well, thank you. Again, that's just a quick glance.
Yep.
Doing things of that nature. Chief Miller, just a few questions. Again, you don't have to answer these. but there's just thoughts that I have, and we can discuss it further. Out of the, for the rescue truck, you talked about your future as you come on and come up, of possibly downsizing. Um, One of the things that, as I work around other fire departments, some say that, you would need a tool, to do the right tool for the right job kind of mentality. Some departments don't like going to the Swiss Army knife of like an engine and a rescue combined because you run out of space or you don't have enough space and things like that. My question is maybe, do we, instead of looking at a rescue truck, do we look at a Swiss Army knife kind of thing with the engine coming up as well?
I would like to speak on that further, but at a later time when I have time to actually
Yep.
make a formal presentation about what a direction I would like us
No
to examine.
disrespect to Chief Price. Okay. And then out of the firefighters that are hired right now currently, how many are rescue certified?
So that's a complicated answer. But for one of our base requirements is vehicle rescue training at the basic level. And then as they progress through the pay grades, they get more involved in the rescue. In the rescue discipline, there's 30 different tracks you can take between vehicle rescue, rope rescue, structural collapse rescue, trench rescue. I could go on for hours about it. Every one of our staff, when they're hired, is trained to the basic vehicle rescue level.
And hopefully I can articulate the last question that I have is, we have different call boxes in different departments around us that have different parts, different apparatuses. Some have a rescue truck and other things. So for example, Macungie has a ladder, we have a ladder, and having shared, I don't want to call it regional, I'll be careful here, but Lehigh County itself has a rescue team as well.
Correct. Yeah, but-
So my question is, do we focus on the rescue truck? Again, this could be a sidebar too, but do we focus on the rescue truck or do we focus on another piece because of the surrounding areas, what they have, what other departments have that we can share? Is a question. You don't have to answer it.
No,
It's just a
I'll
question.
tackle it to this. So basically, the rescue engine, as we designed it, is designed to basically get the ball started until you can get the county resources. And if you need other rescue trucks, this truck was built basically to be able to handle the first 30 minutes of any incident, whether it's a structure fire or a rope rescue or a vehicle rescue, that this can handle most of what we need. And then if we need additional, that's where we would tap our external partners.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that for me, at least, one pivotal piece of information is what the plan would be for replacement. So how would we update it? Because we're thinking about, if we're determining 5 to 7 years in financing, for example, we would need to know at what point might we start having overlap, or, and if we're able to reduce the number of orders or the types of things that we're ordering. So I think that's a piece. It sounds like too, from some of the questions, that having more information would be helpful in order to make a decision. So I know you said that's like a whole other presentation, but even just a preliminary presentation would be helpful. I'm not asking for it now.
Yeah, I can do that at public safety, but again, that overall goal would not affect this apparatus.
And then the other, for me, it's mostly like, how is it going to inform financing? Like if I know that we're going to order something and you're recommending we order it in so many years, I would not want to, I would try and plan the financing so that we're not having as much overlap, for example, is where my mind goes.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and that's why I think the vehicle replacement plan is going to be so crucial, because I think you can kind of determine how many years you're going to finance, or at least that'll help you with that decision if we have a complete confident feel of what that schedule will look like in the future. And so I think one kind of lays on the other one, right? Because 5 years versus 7 years could be the deciding factor. The deciding factor could be, what's the next vehicle? How much is the next vehicle? Or for that matter, how much do we need to start saving towards that next vehicle? Because if the next vehicle is a ladder truck, right? So he showed the number of a ladder truck in 2017 was 1.4 3 million. Was that the number? No, 2017.
We got that
The
from
number in
Bill.
2017 was $1 million less than what the estimate's going to be when it comes time to buy that thing. So if that's the case, right, you need to figure out where to come up with $2.5 million based on today's growth rates. It's that's a big hill to climb. So we need to have that plan in place. We need to know and plan for the future. Obviously, we can't control what council does 15 years from now, but if we're continuously working towards saving the money and prepping for it and having the plan, then it's not, oh crap, it's 2037. Yeah, they told us 20 years ago we've got to buy this thing, but we don't have a dime for it. I think that's really what we really need to try to get to.
So that's where my mind's going mostly, is just to have a better sense so that we can make a decision based on what, obviously this is a priority need for your department. So how are we financing it and what's our plan for that, plan of action for that? But it depends on, again, what will be the long-term plan now that we know more information about lead times and maybe what the specs are and what we can reconsider with what resources are available and which ones we continue to replace. The other thought I had, or wondering I had, was if we commit to making a purchase and it's going to come in 3 years, do they commit to holding that price? So in 3 years, we're not paying for a different price at that point.
So you are signing a contract. I can tell you one of the other manufacturers, not the one that we're proposing, during the middle of COVID, did come back and say that they couldn't do it for that price and offered to cancel the orders at those point. So,
And with
obviously
this-
that was a wild time.
with this vendor, though, that's not the case.
Not that I have ever heard of, no.
I would hope that's the case with the ambulance that's coming, right? Because you just gave me a quote for a new ambulance. That's the same ambulance that is getting delivered 3 years late. The new one is going to be $100,000 more than the one that we're taking delivery of in June. So, yeah, I mean, like those numbers
I
are just,
asked 'cause I know
yeah,
it's
they're going
gone up.
crazy,
Yeah.
but that ambulance price held because we signed that contract 3 years ago.
Yep.
And
Okay.
based on, I know you've interacted with this vendor, but I know this council, or I suspect this council will likely want more information. And our next meetings, of course, are May 6th and May 20th. Is there any way that they hold a price?
I would have to
That
confirm
amount.
that, but again, they talked about the next price increase being towards
In
June, so.
In June, yes, but just to be sure. That would
Okay.
be something I would.
Yeah,
really-
I'll reach out, and also if you would like the vendor to come speak to the full council at the next meeting, I could arrange that, but that would be at your choice.
We're just talking about the formalities with the vendor.
Deputy Chief Miller, hypothetically, if this truck wasn't underpowered and whatnot, would we be looking at replacing it in 20 years? Like,
So what 25 years is normal. It's not just only underpowered, it's extremely overweight. Chief Bryce and myself, during our time here, have had to strip quite a bit of equipment that they felt was mission critical in the past because it was simply overweight. And if we had had an incident, that would not have been good for our department. So the way we designed this truck was basically to get all the needs that we have now and our perceived future needs, whereas the truck that was purchased in 2002 was purchased simply to fit the needs that they had at that time.
Our 2014 study addressed that this truck should have been replaced after 15 years with a major rehab after 10 years. Neither one of those happened. But part of the conversation too was that's in an ideal world, trucks that aren't in a city being used all the time can be extended out to like the 20-year mark or a little bit
that's where I was
beyond
going
that.
with the
Yeah.
question. Like, we would expect another 20 years out of
Absolutely.
out of this one. Right, Ms. Watt?
So I know it took a team of dedicated people going through the rescue truck and speccing it out. So it's a super custom thing. Was it customized to the current replacement schedule, or to a more nebulous?
This truck was designed so that if in 10 years the mission changes or adjusts in any way, that it has the capabilities to change. The way the compartmentation's laid out, the cab, it's all fluid, whereas the current rescue truck, it is what it is. There's no real room to change this around or, hey, this fire widget is now something that we have to carry. There's nowhere to put it. We left a lot of space, transitional spaces where things can get moved. EMS supplies in the cab can be expanded if need be. The truck was absolutely built to make it through that 20-year mark without us saying, hey, we got to order something else early because we didn't fit that need.
I'm just concerned that without an agreed upon replacement schedule, that I'm worried 5 years when the next one comes up, we might be saying, well, if we had known that we were gonna, the council were gonna stumble over the new pumper, we would have done something differently. So I was just asking if it made sense to have a specific recommendation, an update to the apparatus replacement schedule before.
Again, I think
So you've already considered that.
I've already considered that, correct. The truck that we're hoping to purchase soon here would be irrelevant of the changes that I kind of have somewhat brainstormed, that it's totally separate away from this.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too deep into that because I think there's also some differences in philosophy on the management side of what that replacement schedule looks like. So I don't think, I don't want to get too deep into that discussion tonight because I think that both of our chiefs have their own ideas. But Chief Price's idea, what I will tell you is the apparatus replacement plan in place is the one that has been created by the person that directs the department today. He's planning to retire. So at that point is when, and that's something that you guys are going to have to venture through, right? Is, the chief retires and then the next chief, if it's Chief Miller, he's going to have a different vision than what Chief Price did. So without having intentionally or unintentionally have those two butt heads because we're trying to get to what the future replacement plan is, I think we need to venture down that probably at the public safety level, and kind of get both philosophies of a replacement plan without getting one in trouble or the other one upset. Because I do think that there's a little bit of a different vision from both of them. So I want to be cautious not to put him in a bad spot where he says something in front of his boss that's not going to go over well. So I just want to warn that we probably have a little bit of a different philosophy between the two on what the future of the apparatus plan is going to look like.
It does seem like a critical discussion, and we are going to be meeting in May, so that would be a great place to have more of that research and information.
Maybe we have them arm wrestle and see who wins.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into that now, but once again, the 5-year replacement schedule was approved by a past council. This truck, by the time, if we get to order that yet this spring, before the next price increase, this truck, by the time the replacement arrives, is going to be approaching that 24 to 25-year age mark. So no matter what the future replacement schedule looks like, that is for another 5 years down the road. And with a fleet of 5 major vehicles replacing every 5 years, vehicles are going to be aging out at 25 years. We are already 4 years behind in our replacement schedule from the turmoils the department went through 8-10 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not picking up that we're disagreeing on the necessity. I think it's just, if we have an updated and well thought out plan, now that these changes have been occurring, I think it just helps inform our plan and strategy moving forward for making it work.
And it helps me plan for you better, right? So, because now we're not talking about a couple $100,000 a vehicle anymore. We're talking about, I saw on that plan 3 vehicles that were between $1 and $3 million. Those are very big numbers. So I don't think the question that I'm hearing from you is, do we need to replace vehicles? I think it's how we replace vehicles. And what vehicles we replace them with, I think is the other real kind of critical thing that you want to understand. We don't just want to start throwing money out there saying, hey, go order. Um, I think I think it's without assuming, I think everybody recognizes the need of a replacement plan. I think there's just understanding what the philosophy of what that replacement plan looks like so that we can also figure out the borough's finances, because we're talking about money here that the residents are going to have to pay in addition to what they pay today. And so that makes it a little bit more critical for council to understand when you make that vote, because essentially by voting to buy a rescue truck, you're voting to increase property taxes. That's what you're doing. I don't see a way around that based on the current financial position if you're using strictly the fire tax to do it. And so understanding, okay, if we do that though, like, are we doing that for like, we're setting that tax specifically for future savings, right? So that way we have a pipeline of money every year going into savings to pay for the next set of trucks. Those are all things that these folks are trying to understand and get a grasp of, rather than carte blanche. Hey, we know that we're going to need $200,000 a year. Let's just say yes, and next year we're going to raise your taxes.
Right, we've taken a standard of $100,000 a year of savings. That might not be feasible anymore with a plan, right? So I think it's not about deciding this particular need, but how do we approach it in terms of thinking through future needs and planning for that, financing, saving, what financial option do we choose for this particular need this year? It just factors into, I think, all of that thinking, at least for me.
I like your idea of the increase next year to get ahead of the game, to put more money before we even purchase it, because then you end up borrowing less and then you pay less interest, and I think that makes sense. With the 20-year Penvest loan, if I recall, it's in my head that you're not able to pay Penvest loans off early, are you?
So I think you can now. I think you
Okay.
can now.
So
Yeah.
with that being said,
Right. And as Mr. Ulrich just said, I think it depends on the type of loan that you take out with them, because they have different package
Okay.
options and
if we're able to, and if we do increase, I would suggest paying off that 20-year loan, because it would be basically 2 payments of 11,000. Pay that off, save a couple thousand or 100, whatever it is, because it's only 2% loan. One thing I have a hard time grasping is how fire companies always get rid of fire trucks, but they're always good enough for another fire company, and that always is in my head. So it led me to think, do we ever look in the market to buy a used fire truck? Now, hear me out on this. If somebody else has a 10-year plan or 12-year plan where they're replacing them, there's life in those vehicles yet. And I'm just wondering if we ever considered it. I'm not suggesting we do that, but it's in my head, like, you get rid of a fire truck, but it's still good enough for another fire department, and that always was in my head. So
The only thing and this is actually just from some experience, and I bet Mr. Pepe probably has the same response. The sale of those used trucks usually goes to municipalities that can't afford or cannot customize their stuff. So they tend to purchase stuff that tends to be both used and less
no,
effective.
I
for
understand
their
it. It goes to
specific
the
needs.
rural departments that
correct, and
are
that's what I was gonna say.
volunteers and they don't have the money
I
either.
jokingly said to Mr. Pepe that I'm sure Shamokin will buy it to make fun of him. But all joking aside, like a department that doesn't have the same resources
Right.
really doesn't have a choice, so they have to do that. That said, this vehicle being less further along in its lifespan and having been used more efficiently, will probably draw a good amount in the secondary market.
we may see 200,000 on it. That is not something I have any clue on what the value of that truck
And I will
is.
simply say that second market vehicles right now are selling for
Well,
an
if you
insanely
can't
high
order
number.
a fire truck and get it in 3 years,
Exactly.
that pushes the used market up. I mean, you can make that assumption.
It's like the ambulance I used to be able to get in 6 to 8 months. Still waiting. I ordered it in July 3 years ago.
Okay, so we're doing Penvest loans for PFAS and also the sewer, and I'm assuming the sewer is going to be first, then PFAS.
No.
So PFAS
They might,
first.
they might, they might be
About the
submitted,
same
they
time.
might be submitted on the same date.
Okay. So that's going to be this year, correct?
I might avoid, I think I might avoid doing that. No. PFAS is definitely priority one.
Because it's the larger
Definitely
one.
priority one, and that has to go in November. And if that means I avoid taking that loan out until
Next year.
February of next year, then that's what we do, because that $10 million
For the
PFAS
sewer one you're referring
Yeah.
to. Okay.
that
So-
$10 million
so-
PFAS is priority one.
So full time for PFAS and then early next year for, okay. So
You
this is
gotta
what-
remember
this is what I-
Penvest meets once a quarter, so
Okay,
it's not. it's
this
not
is what I'm
just
getting at.
apply.
So those two will be already applied for and we hopefully hear from them. When will we be applying for Penvest if we wanted to try to get it for the fire truck too? I mean, you
Yeah,
can
so-
try, but doesn't mean you're going to get it.
So again, you would, it would be based on the delivery schedule, right? So really, the reality is probably 2.5 years, you'd be,
So we could have a shot
you'd
at
be putting in,
Penvest.
you could,
Okay.
you could.
Also, the question for you is, I always feel like we get bells and whistles, but I'm sure there's a use for everything. But is there anything that you could ever cut back on a truck? For instance, color. I know we get specialized green trucks,
No,
but,
our trucks are white and they actually did that.
or
back
like with the
in,
green trim, whatever, yeah.
When they ordered in the 90s to save money. That's not really a thing anymore in today's world. It's a
I
standard.
just thought I'd ask. I don't know if everything you're ordering is a need.
And I can tell
and
you,
If some of them were
we
wants,
had the
if
committee
they could be
together.
reduced.
if I had allowed them all to put in everything they wanted, this would be like a $4 million fire truck. This was cut down to the needs and the anticipated growing needs of the department. It doesn't have the adult fidget spinner on the front of it. or any
I'm
of
fine
those
with that.
things.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
That's for the kids.
With the LED light on it. And lastly, the infrastructure that was passed by the federal government, do we know if any of that is funneling down to our fire, ambulance, police? Do we know if any of that's going down?
So I can
where-
say, not specific to the Infrastructure Act bill, but there's like assistance for firefighter grants. And they're getting awarded to companies that have apparatus that are 40 or 50 years old. They're not really helping.
So there's
departments like
nothing
ours.
coming from that federal,
Not that I'm aware
infrastructure
of.
or
and
any of that?
Not that I'm aware of.
We haven't seen a ton of details on that quite yet.
Okay.
We've seen some, but that's more on the, like, of course, I'm getting
I'm
phone
just
calls.
curious. I mean, it could still be rolling out. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
we've seen more on like the water side. I haven't seen a whole lot of other details
I'm
of some of
finished.
the other stuff.
Hopefully it's coming.
Anybody have anything else? Appreciate you guys coming in
Thank
and,
you.
and talking with this, and I think that we'll have a lot of work here to do over the next couple of months for sure.
Thank you, Chief Miller. And Chief Price. Yeah.
You're okay to go home now.
As soon as they know the act. They leave, you guys vote.
So thank you for those presentations and for that discussion. As you can see, I mean, we've talked about it across 2 committee meetings and likely the next one, which will be May 8th at 9 a.m. So if you're eager to hear more, that's when we're talking about it. And we'll report progress.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is General Administration, Mr. Labenberg.
We have one item to take action on the DEP Safe Drinking Water Program Consent Order and Agreement Amendment. And Shane, correct me if I'm incorrect, but this is basically a kind of a timetable that we're agreeing to.
It's an update on the timeline. Now that we have some more defined timelines in place from the engineering, they want us to essentially commit to this is when these steps are going to be in place. So you don't have much more of a negotiation here. It is what it is. Our attorney has looked at it. Our environmental engineers have looked at it. We made several changes that they were amenable to from the original proposed consent agreement, but I feel comfortable with it. Attorney Ulrich.
I would simply point out, we made as many changes and went as broad as possible to try to give us as much leeway in these implementation times. We pushed as far as we could. I think we have achieved that, but they would not go further than what they've given us in this consent
That's
order.
correct. I will tell you that DEP, again, it's a consent order. We have to do this. We know we have to do this, but they've also been partners throughout the process. So, but they have to stick to their guns and make sure that the municipality is doing what it's supposed to be doing to mitigate the PFAS issue. So, we have to. I'm not sure that you have much of a choice here. If you vote no, I think you just get a court mandate instead.
Correct. You end up enforcement, and then they attempt to enforce it through administrative means, which usually means a court order.
If anybody goes to jail, if they vote no and anybody goes to jail, will that be the council president?
No.
Oh, all right.
All right, so I'll make a motion to pass the consent order and agreement
I want
amendment.
to make sure it's not me.
There's a motion by Mr. Labenberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Baumgartner, any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
We meet this Wednesday at 9 a.m. And if you could take a look at the fleet policy so we can knock that out. And also we plan on the valuations for insurance. We'll hopefully knock that out. And then if there's any new items that address, we'll do that. With that, progress.
Thank you. Budget and finance. You're going to find the first quarter budget performance is attached. Also is the significant revenue and expenses for the first half of April. And I will need a motion to approve Resolution 2024-13, which is the bill list as follows. The bill list is $402,254.61. We got a payroll of $196,523.19. Payroll taxes of $65,774.62 for a grand total of $664,552.42. And that's going to be done this April 15th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Watt. Mr. Labenberg, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes. Our next meeting will be May 1st at 11 a.m. And with that, I'll report progress. Community Relations Planning and Development, Ms. Watt.
Thank you. We had the pleasure of interviewing 5 candidates for the Historical Commission. They all need to be done separately because they have different, okay. So I make a motion to appoint Ken Biles as the Shelter House representative to the Historical Commission for a 2-year term expiring January 1st, 2026.
We got a motion by Ms. Watt. We have a second by Mr. Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6 ayes.
Next, a motion to appoint Jean Clark as the Canals Homestead representative to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term expiring January 1st, 2027.
Motion by Ms. Watt, seconded by Mr. Anders. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 6 ayes.
Next, a motion to appoint Mary Ellen Yobst as the Canals Homestead representative to the Historical Commission for a 2-year term expiring January 1st, 2026.
Motion by Ms. Watt. Is there a second? Mr. Brown? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6.
A motion to appoint Marion Schneck as the 1803 House representative to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term expiring January 1st, 2027.
Motion by Ms. Watt, seconded by Mr. Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
And last but not least, a motion to appoint Walter Lewis III as an 1803 House representative to the Historical Commission for a 2-year term expiring January 1st, 2026.
Motion by Ms. Watt. Is there a second? Mr. Brown? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 6.
We're very excited that the Historical Commission is taking shape, and hopefully, Historical Commission meetings are on the horizon. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 14th at 5 p.m. I see that.
It's like, that is really
Wow,
ambitious. You guys
And
are
she said she's available, okay? So we wanted to see just how eager she is to come to town hall.
Progress.
Thank you. There are no boards or commission notes attached. Personal appeals part 2. Do we have anybody with a personal appeal in the audience? Hearing none. There is nobody online. Borough managers report.
Yeah, so obviously we have a lot going on. At your next meeting, we'll make the announcement for a number of the summer parks employee hirings. Just didn't get it in time today for that announcement for you, but we're making progress with that. The deadline for the assistant borough manager position was at noon today. We have about 270 applications. We are looking at, again, as Mr. Anders stated, we're looking at the public works applications again, and going through that process. I'm pretty confident that we can look through and interview additional people since we had 700 applications this round. I don't think I need to advertise again for that. I think we can go through that process. Just kind of keep an eye on your committee notes because I think there's a lot of things in the pipeline here that are starting to work their way through the system. And you'll start seeing, I think at the council level, I know that a number of your committees are working on some pretty significant projects and undertakings, whether it's the zoning ordinance or we're looking at a number of things at the CRD level. But you've got a lot of things going on. I've got 5 or 6 RFPs that I'm working on right now for the departments or for processes. The refuse RFP is coming. We're going to be getting ready to send out the RFP to redo the floors over at the fire station. I have just a little bit of cleanup on those 2 RFPs to do. The actuary RFP is out. So I'm excited that we have the consultant doing that one for us, at least taking us through most of that process. So a lot coming in the very near future. I think as the committees are quickly took shape and quickly took on some major projects that were either left over from last year or goals that we've been wanting to tackle that they've decided to take on. So a lot going on and a lot to come. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will report progress.
Awesome. Thank you. Under President's business, I have nothing. There will not be an executive session tonight. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Ms. Baumgartner and seconded by Mr. Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
You didn't ask for nays. We didn't vote yes.
What? Oh,
You know, it's
any
really
nays?
Nay.
Hey.
Bye.
Die.
You guys suck.
Kidding.
All right, so technically,
Who were the 3 no's?
Are you kidding
All right,
me?
so
You're
Nate-
gonna pull that tonight.
Nate, were you a
technically
no? No,
speaking,
who was a no?
those
You're
3,
three.
Ms. Watt,
Okay.
Mr. Anders, Mr. Labenberg were no's. Pursuant to the Borough Code, the mayor has to vote on the tied motion.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:39. Thank you, guys. That's good
I
stuff.
hate all of you.
Trouble.
I'm sure the mayor shares my sentiment that